She was deaf and mute. But on Christmas Day, the impossible happened. Robert Johnson felt his heart break a little more with each passing Christmas. His 5-year-old daughter, Emily, had never spoken a single word or shown any reaction to the sounds of the world around her. It was on Christmas Eve of 2024, in their small home in New Haven, that something extraordinary happened. William, the girl's grandfather, had dressed up as Santa Claus to try to cheer up his granddaughter, even knowing she didn't understand Christmas traditions. When Emily approached and whispered something in his ear, the old man stood frozen in shock. Robert watched the scene without understanding why his father began crying desperately. The journey of suffering had begun 5 years earlier, when Emily was born. During her first months of life, the little one seemed normal, sleeping peacefully, even with loud noises. Robert and his wife Jessica thought they had a very calm baby. It was only at 6 months, when Emily didn't react to the noise of a pan falling in the kitchen, that they suspected something was wrong. The first tests confirmed the parents' worst nightmare: profound congenital deafness. Jessica couldn't bear the diagnosis. 2 weeks after receiving the news, she packed her bags and left, leaving only a note saying she didn't have the strength to raise a special needs child. Robert was left alone with Emily and a future that seemed hopeless. William, who had been a music teacher for 40 years, decided to move into his son's home to help. The old man suffered deeply because he couldn't share his passion for music with his granddaughter. Even so, he insisted on playing guitar for Emily every day, hoping that some vibration might reach her somehow. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out now continuing. The first years were an ordeal of doctor appointments, failed therapies, and expensive treatments. Robert worked as an accountant in 3 different offices to pay for specialists. William used his entire teacher's pension to pay for equipment that promised miracles but never worked. Dr. Michael Parker, the region's main speech therapist, had been categorical from the beginning. Robert, you need to accept reality. Emily will never develop speech. Her deafness is complete. You're spending money you don't have on illusions, but William wouldn't accept it. Every night after Emily fell asleep, he would lock himself in his room and cry. How could a man who dedicated his whole life to music accept that his granddaughter would never hear a melody? Dad, maybe the doctor is right, said Robert one December night in 2023. Emily is already 4 years old and nothing has changed. Maybe it's time to accept and focus on helping her in other ways. No, my son, something tells me there's still hope, replied William, wringing his trembling hands. The family's financial situation was critical. Robert had sold the car, pawned the wedding rings, and taken out loans he could barely pay. The neighbors on Elm Street began whispering that he was being irresponsible, spending everything on a lost cause. During the months leading up to Christmas 2024, something strange began to happen. Emily developed the habit of placing her little hands on objects that vibrated: the washing machine, the blender, the old speaker William used to play his music. She would stay there for minutes with a concentrated expression that puzzled both men. Robert, look at this, said William one afternoon, showing how Emily reacted when he played certain notes on the guitar. The girl not only placed her hands on the instrument, but her little face lit up with something that seemed like recognition. Mrs. Thompson, the closest neighbor, a 70-year-old lady who had lived alone since her husband passed away, watched Emily play in the backyard every afternoon. One day she commented to Robert, "Mr. Johnson, I might be wrong, but sometimes I get the impression that Emily feels things differently. My late husband had an ear problem, and he used to say he heard the world in a strange way, not with his ear, but with his whole body." Robert didn't pay much attention at the time, but Mrs. Thompson's words kept echoing in his mind. In November 2024, news arrived that would change everything. Dr. Sarah Miller, a young, recently graduated speech therapist, had been assigned to the local health clinic. She brought with her modern techniques she had learned at the Federal University. "I'd like to evaluate Emily again," she said during the first consultation. "Diagnostic methods have advanced a lot in recent years. Sometimes what appears to be total deafness can have nuances that went unnoticed." Robert hesitated. How many false hopes had they already lived through? How many tears had they already shed? "Doctor, I don't know if I can take another disappointment," he confessed, his voice choked with emotion. "I understand completely, Mr. Johnson, but let me tell you something. I had a similar case in Chicago. A child everyone thought was completely deaf, but we discovered she had residual hearing at very specific frequencies. Today she speaks normally." William, who had remained silent, looked up with eyes full of tears. "Doctor, if there's a chance, even a small one, we want to try." Dr. Miller explained they would need more sophisticated tests, available only in Washington, D.C. The cost would be high, but she knew a lab that offered special prices for study cases. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened. Margaret, William's mother, arrived from Pennsylvania to spend Christmas with the family. The 82-year-old woman brought in her luggage old objects that had belonged to her husband, including a 1960s hearing aid. "I brought these things from your father, William. Maybe Emily will like playing with them," said Margaret, handing over an old little box. Emily was fascinated with the old hearing aid and started carrying it everywhere. William found it curious, but Robert was too worried about the cost of the new tests to pay attention. Christmas Eve arrived with a heavy atmosphere. Robert had managed to get the money for the tests, but he would have to travel to Washington, D.C. right after the festivities. The house was simply decorated with ornaments William had made with Emily, using colored paper and his endless patience. "Dad, you don't have to dress up as Santa Claus this year," said Robert, watching William put on the old costume he had worn since Emily was a baby. "Yes, I do. It might be the last Christmas I spend with you," replied the elderly man with a sad smile. William had been feeling very tired lately. His high blood pressure had worsened with the stress, and he knew his days were numbered. He wanted to create one last special memory with his granddaughter, even if she couldn't hear him say how much he loved her. The family gathered in the small living room, decorated with blinking lights that Mrs. Thompson had lent them. Emily played on the floor, wearing a little brown dress that William had bought with his last savings. Her great-grandfather's old hearing aid was hanging around her neck like a necklace. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. It was when William knelt down to hug Emily that something extraordinary happened. Her great-grandfather's old hearing aid somehow created an interference with the Christmas lights, producing a specific vibration that had never occurred before. Emily stopped playing and looked directly into her grandfather's eyes. For the first time in 5 years, she seemed to truly see someone, not just look. Her little hands touched William's bearded face, and she leaned in as if wanting to tell a secret. "Grandpa," she whispered, so softly that William thought he had imagined it. The elderly man went completely still. Robert, who was organizing the presents under the tree, hadn't noticed anything. "Robert," William called, his voice trembling. "Come here now." "What is it, Dad? Are you feeling unwell?" "Emily, she spoke." Robert ran to them, thinking his father had suffered some kind of mental confusion. "Dad, are you all right? Do you want me to call Dr. Wilson?" Emily looked at her father and, with all the clarity in the world, said, "Daddy." Robert fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his face as he tried to process what was happening. Emily had spoken. His daughter, diagnosed with profound total deafness, had pronounced 2 perfect words. "This can't be true," murmured Robert, scooping Emily into his arms. "My love, can you hear me?" Emily nodded her little head, smiling in a way he had never seen before. It was as if she had finally woken up to the world. William ran to get the phone and called Dr. Sarah Miller, even though it was Christmas Eve. "Doctor, I'm sorry to call at this hour, but something impossible has happened." Emily spoke. "Mr. William, I know you're anxious, but sometimes desperation makes us imagine things." "No, Doctor." She really spoke. She said Grandpa and Daddy, clear as day. Dr. Sarah Miller was silent for a few seconds. "I'll be right there. Don't leave the house." While they waited for the doctor to arrive, Robert tried to talk to Emily, who now responded by nodding her head and even saying a few simple words. It was as if all language had been stored inside her, waiting for just the right moment to come out. "My love, how long have you been able to hear us?" asked Robert, holding his daughter's little hands. Emily pointed to the old device on her neck. and then to the little lights on the tree. "She's trying to explain something to us," said William, intrigued. When Dr. Sarah Miller arrived, she brought a portable device to do basic tests. What she discovered left everyone astonished. "This is extraordinary," she said, analyzing Emily's responses. "She's responding to specific frequencies we didn't test for in previous exams. It's as if the old device is working like a bridge." "How do you mean, Doctor?" asked Robert, confused. "Sometimes old equipment operates on different frequencies than modern ones. Emily's great-grandfather's device might be picking up and amplifying sounds in a range that conventional tests didn't cover." William picked up the old device and examined it carefully. "This device belonged to my father. He always said he heard things other people didn't." Dr. Sarah Miller did a few more tests and discovered something surprising. Emily wasn't completely deaf. She had an extremely rare condition called residual hearing in ultra-specific frequencies, combined with a neurological block that prevented normal sound processing. The combination of the old device with the tree's blinking lights created a specific reverberation that unlocked something in her brain, the doctor explained. "It's a unique case. I'll need to document everything." In the days following Christmas, Emily began to speak more words. First, simple names like water and bread. Then, small phrases like want up and love you. Robert couldn't believe it. After 5 years of total silence, his daughter was talking to them. William spent hours teaching her new words, singing the songs he always played on his guitar, now finally being heard by Emily. Grandpa, you sing beautifully," said Emily one January morning, making William cry with joy. But the happiness was interrupted when devastating news arrived. Jessica, Emily's mother, learned about her daughter's recovery through mutual acquaintances and decided to return. "Robert, I heard Emily is speaking. I've come to get my daughter," said Jessica, appearing at the door one February afternoon. "Jessica, you abandoned us when we needed you most. Now you want to come back because Emily has improved? She is my daughter. I have the right to be with her." Emily, who was playing in the living room, heard the argument and hid behind William. "Grandpa, who is this lady?" she asked softly. William's heart broke. Emily didn't remember her own mother. It's a friend of your daddy's, my angel." Jessica tried to approach Emily, but the little girl ran to her room, frightened. Robert explained that it would take time for Emily to readjust, but Jessica was impatient. "I want to take Emily to Chicago. There are better doctors and specialized schools there." "Jessica, Emily is fine here. She's learning to speak. She has her routine. She has a grandfather who loves her." "Oh, of course. You want her to stay in this small town forever? She deserves more than that." The legal battle began in March. Jessica hired a lawyer in Chicago and filed for custody. Robert didn't have money for a private lawyer and relied on public defense. During this terrible period, Emily began to regress. The stress of the situation and the presence of a stranger in the house made her quieter, speaking only to William and Robert. "Daddy, why does the lady want to take me away?" asked Emily one night, making Robert despair. "No one will take you away from us, my love, Daddy promises." But Robert knew he might not be able to keep that promise. Dr. Wilson, the family doctor for over 20 years, decided to help. He knew the whole story and offered to testify in the case, confirming that Emily was better off where she was. "Jessica abandoned this child at the most difficult time," he told the judge. "William and Robert were the ones who cared for her all these years. This is where she feels safe." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us, who are just starting out. Now continuing. Jessica brought medical reports from Chicago, promising that Emily would have access to the best treatments. But Dr. Sarah Miller presented evidence that Emily's recovery was directly related to the loving environment she had at home. "Your Honor, cases like Emily's are extremely rare. Her development happened here with these people in this environment. Removing the child at this time could be detrimental to her progress." The judge, Judge Edward Reynolds, was undecided. Both sides presented valid arguments. It was then that Emily did something that surprised everyone. During the hearing, when the judge asked who she wanted to stay with, The 5-year-old girl stood up and, with the clarity of someone who knew exactly what she wanted, said, "I want to stay with my daddy and my grandpa. The lady can visit, but my home is here." The judge was impressed by the maturity of the response and ruled that Emily would remain with Robert and William, but Jessica would have the right to supervised visits. In the following months, life returned to normal. Emily continued to develop her speech rapidly, as if she were recovering 5 years of silence. William created special songs for her, adapting old lyrics to include the words she was learning. The old device from her great-grandfather became a family treasure. Dr. Sarah explained that the equipment operated on a specific frequency that, combined with Emily's natural neurological development, had created the perfect conditions for her recovery. "It's as if the device were a key that opened a door that already existed, but was locked," the doctor explained. Robert began to feel hopeful about the future again. His daughter not only spoke, but demonstrated brilliant intelligence, asking questions about everything and learning new words every day. William, despite his health problems, seemed to grow younger, seeing Emily's progress. He began teaching her music, discovering the girl had an extraordinary ear for melodies. "Grandpa, can I learn to play guitar like you?" Emily asked one April afternoon. "Of course you can, my angel. You have a special gift." Jessica continued visiting, but Emily kept her distance. The girl was polite, but made it clear she didn't consider Jessica her mother. "She needs time," Robert told Jessica during one visit. 5 years is a long time in a child's life." "I know I made a mistake," admitted Jessica, with tears in her eyes. "But I want to try to rebuild our relationship. That depends on Emily, not us." In June 2025, Emily gave her first guitar recital. William had taught her a child-friendly version of Country Roads, and the girl performed at the New Haven Community Center to raise funds for other children with hearing impairments. "I want to help other kids like me," said Emily, standing on the makeshift stage, holding the child-sized guitar William had bought with great sacrifice. The audience was moved. Many present knew Emily's story and couldn't hold back tears watching her play and sing. Robert watched from the front row next to William, feeling immense pride in his daughter. Mrs. Thompson was there, Dr. Sarah was too, and even Jessica had come to watch. "Daddy, is Grandpa okay?" Emily asked mid-performance, noticing William looked paler than usual. "I'm fine, my angel. Keep singing for Grandpa." But William wasn't fine. The effort of recent months, the emotion of seeing Emily recover, it had all taken its toll. His heart was weak, but he hid it from everyone to not spoil the family's happiness. In July, William was hospitalized with serious heart problems. Emily was distraught and refused to eat or play. "Daddy, when is Grandpa coming home?" she asked every day. "Soon, my love. He just needs a little rest." Emily began visiting William in the hospital every day. She brought her small guitar and played the songs he had taught her. The nurses were moved seeing the girl trying to cheer up her grandfather. "Grandpa, you can't be sad. Remember you said music heals everything," Emily said, sitting by the hospital bed. William smiled, but he knew his condition was serious. One night he called Robert for a serious talk. "Son, I want you to know these last months have been the happiest of my life. Seeing Emily speaking, singing, it was more than I could have dreamed." "Dad, don't talk like that. You'll get better, and we'll have many more Christmases together. Robert, I need you to promise me something. Keep up Emily's music lessons. She has a special talent, and if Jessica insists on taking her, fight. Emily needs you." In August, William was discharged from the hospital, but with strict restrictions. He could no longer exert himself physically and would need constant care. Robert rearranged his life to work from home, caring for both his father and Emily. It was during this time they discovered something extraordinary about the great-grandfather's device. Margaret brought old letters her husband had written, describing his hearing condition. "William, your father had the same problem as Emily," said Margaret, reading a letter from 1945. "He only started hearing after he got a special device that a German invented. The great-grandfather's device wasn't ordinary equipment. It was an experimental prototype created by a German technician who had taken refuge in Brazil after World War II. The equipment worked on a unique frequency that few devices could reproduce." Dr. Sarah Miller was fascinated by the discovery and decided to study Emily's case for her master's thesis. She got permission to replicate the old device's functionality in modern equipment. "Emily isn't just an isolated case," explained the doctor. "There's a condition called selective neural deafness that affects 1 in every 500,000 children. Her great-grandfather's device works exactly at the frequency needed to treat it. With this discovery, other similar cases began to be identified. Emily involuntarily became the first documented case of complete recovery from this condition in Brazil. In September, Emily entered regular school for the first time. Robert was nervous, but the girl only showed eagerness to learn everything she had missed. "Ms. Anderson, Emily is a very special child," explained Robert to the first-grade teacher. "She's only been learning to speak for a few months, so please be patient." "Don't worry, Mr. Johnson. We'll take good care of her." Emily adapted quickly to school. Her thirst for learning was impressive, and within a few months she was at the same level as the other children in the class. Jessica kept visiting, but the relationship with Emily remained distant. The girl was polite, but didn't show the affection she had for Robert and William. "Maybe if I spend more time here, she'll get used to me again," said Jessica to Robert. "Jessica, you need to understand that you missed 5 crucial years. Emily doesn't remember you as her mother. To her, you're a stranger who showed up when she was finally happy. But I can learn to be her mother again. You can try, but it'll have to be on her time, not yours." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. In October, William had a serious relapse and had to return to the hospital. Emily was inconsolable and refused to go to school for a week. "Daddy, what if Grandpa doesn't come back?" asked Emily, hugging her child-sized guitar. "Emily, sometimes people get sick, but that doesn't mean they're going to leave us. Grandpa is strong, he'll get better." But Robert knew he couldn't guarantee that. The doctors had been clear. William's heart was very weak. During this difficult time, something unexpected happened. Emily began to show impressive emotional maturity for a 5-year-old. "Daddy, can I go to the hospital to play guitar for Grandpa? Music heals, right?" she said, repeating the words William always spoke. Robert took Emily to visit her grandfather, and something magical happened. When she began to play Country Roads, other hospital patients gathered to listen. Emily, who had spent 5 years in silence, was now bringing joy to people who were also suffering. "Grandpa, I'm helping people like you always wanted to do with your music," said Emily, sitting on the edge of the hospital bed. William cried with emotion. His granddaughter hadn't just learned to speak and play, but had understood the true power of music. Jessica, who was present during this visit, finally understood something important. Emily was no longer the baby she had abandoned. She was a special child, shaped by the love of Robert and William. "Robert, can I talk with you?" asked Jessica after they left the hospital. "Of course, I've been thinking, perhaps Emily is better off right here. You've built something I never could. I'd like to be part of her life, but as a family friend, not as someone who wants to take her away." Robert Johnson was surprised by Jessica's change of heart. "Are you sure?" "I am. I made a terrible mistake when I abandoned you. Now I want to try to make it right, but at Emily's pace, as you said." William returned home in November, weaker, but determined to spend one more Christmas with Emily. The little girl had learned 10 new songs and wanted to put on a special concert for her grandfather. "Grandpa, this Christmas will be even more special than last year," said Emily, hugging William gently. "Why, my angel?" "Because now I can thank you for never giving up on me." William smiled, knowing all the years of struggle had been worth it. Emily organized a musical performance on Christmas Eve 2025. She invited all the neighbors, Dr. Sarah Miller, even the nurses from the hospital who had cared for William. "I want to sing for all the people who helped me hear the world," she announced, standing in the living room holding her guitar. Robert Johnson had decorated the house again with little lights, the same ones that had created the miracle the previous year. Emily wore her great-grandfather's old hearing device as a special necklace, even though she no longer needed it to hear. "This song is for my grandpa, who never stopped playing for me, even when I couldn't hear," said Emily, beginning to play a version of Amazing Grace that William had adapted for guitar. The audience was moved. Mrs. Thompson cried openly, remembering her husband. Dr. Sarah Miller recorded everything to document the extraordinary case. Jessica was at the back of the room, respecting Emily's space, but grateful to witness that moment. William watched his granddaughter with eyes full of pride. She had not only learned to speak, but had become a little artist, sharing through music all the joy she felt. "Now, I want to sing a song I learned by myself," said Emily, surprising everyone. She began to sing Happy Birthday to You, but with different lyrics. "Thank you to you, dear Grandpa, thank you to you, for teaching me that love doesn't need sound to be heard." William couldn't contain himself and cried like a child. Robert Johnson knelt beside his father and daughter, feeling immense gratitude for everything they had achieved. "Emily, where did you learn that song?" asked Robert Johnson. "I made it up for Grandpa. It's just that I always heard you two, even when I couldn't hear. I felt the love in my heart." In that moment, everyone present understood that the true miracle hadn't been Emily regaining her hearing, but the unconditional love a family can offer even in the most difficult circumstances. Jessica approached timidly and asked to speak with Emily. "Emily, can you forgive me for leaving?" she asked, kneeling to the girl's eye level. Emily looked at her with her big, serene eyes. "You were scared, right? My daddy explained to me that sometimes adults get scared when they don't understand things. It's true, I was very frightened. It's okay. Grandpa taught me that forgiving is important. Do you want to learn to play guitar too?" Jessica nodded, emotional. Emily had offered her a second chance without resentment, with the purity only a child possesses. Christmas 2025 was different from all the previous ones. The family was together, including Jessica, who had moved to a small apartment in New Haven to be near Emily. William, even weakened, managed to play guitar while Emily sang. Robert Johnson prepared the Christmas dinner with Jessica's help, who was learning to be part of that family again, but in a different way. "Daddy, next year I want to learn piano too," said Emily during dinner. "Piano? That's very difficult, my love. Grandpa said music is the language of the heart. I want to learn all possible languages." William smiled, knowing he had planted the right seed in his granddaughter's heart. "Emily, do you want to know a secret?" said William, calling the girl closer. "I do, Grandpa. Great-Grandpa's device wasn't what made you hear. It was the love we feel for you. The device just showed that you could always hear with your heart." Emily hugged her grandfather and whispered in his ear, "I know, Grandpa. I always knew you loved me. That's why I never felt alone." That night, Robert tucked Emily into bed and she asked a question he would never forget. "Daddy, do you think other children like me can be helped?" "Of course, my love. Why do you ask?" "When I grow up, I want to be a doctor to help deaf children. I want them to know there is hope." Robert kissed his daughter's forehead, knowing she would become someone extraordinary. Emily had gone from a silent child to a little fountain of inspiration that touched the lives of everyone around her. William, lying in his room, heard Robert reading a story to Emily. The sweet voice of his granddaughter answering her father's questions was the most beautiful music he had ever heard. Jessica, in her apartment, reflected on everything she had lost and everything she could still build. She knew she would never be the mother Emily needed during the most difficult years, but she could try to be the friend the girl deserved to have. Dr. Sarah Miller continued studying Emily's case, which was helping to identify other children with similar conditions. Great-Grandpa's device had been replicated and was helping entire families not give up on their children. The following Christmas promised to be even more special because Emily had been invited to perform at the hospital where William was treated. She wanted to bring music and hope to other families going through difficult times. "Grandpa, will you be able to play with me at the hospital?" asked Emily. "I'll try, my angel. Even if it's the last time, I'll play with you." But William knew he might not have the strength for it. The important thing was that Emily had found her voice, not just to speak, but to touch other people's lives. Emily's story had spread through the city and reached other regions. Families with deaf children began seeking out Dr. Sarah Miller, bringing hope where there was once only resignation. Robert had organized his life so he could give full attention to his daughter and father. His work as an accountant allowed flexibility, and he had discovered that his true calling was taking care of the people he loved. Emily, at 5 years old, already showed a wisdom that impressed everyone around her. She had not only overcome her condition, but was using her experience to help other people. "Daddy, can I visit that little girl who arrived at Dr. Sarah Miller's clinic? She's sad, like I was before." "Of course you can, Emily. You might be the best medicine for her." Little Emily had become an ambassador of hope, proving that limitations can be overcome when there is love, persistence, and faith in the impossible. End of story. And you, dear listener, what did you think of this story of overcoming and love? Have you lived through difficult moments that seemed impossible to overcome? Share your experience in the comments and tell us where you're joining us from. Emily teaches us that the true miracle of Christmas happens when we don't give up on the people we love. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.